Perfect. Oh, great. So we're starting to record. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so now you see everything. Now what I'm gonna do is I prepared a PowerPoint. So I am going to share my screen with everyone. Okay, so also this, yeah, you have to enable me to share my screen. Okay, enable screen sharing. And let me know. And thank you everyone for being so patient and waiting. Really excited to be here. So you know what, until Yael gets to that, to the share screen, I'm gonna start, okay? I'm gonna start, and soon you'll be able to see also the material that I prepared for everyone. So basically today, this is gonna be a workshop where we're also gonna learn a little bit, but primarily what was important for me to do, and this is also something that I discussed with Ellen and with my grandmother, is an opportunity also to reflect and think and feel and share. So it's not only about just getting knowledge, but you have an amazing group that you created, that Ellen brought together, a group of wonderful, wonderful women. And my grandmother kind of like whispered in my ear, and she said, it would be really nice if we kind of got to know each other on a little bit of a deeper level. So I thought that we'll do that through a prism of kind of like looking through the glasses of a psychologist that's very well known and well liked, and I really like his theory, psychologist by the name of Erik Erikson. So before we get deeper into Erik Erikson and his theory, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Let me just see if I can do the share screen. Yes, I can do the share screen. Let's get started. Here we go. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint, and I'm going to show it to you. And let's just see that it's working with the slideshow. Okay, here we go. So I call this workshop Rediscovering Our Inner Gifts, Lessons We've Learned from Chapters of Our Lives. And, you know, we only have an hour together, so we're obviously not going to go through all the chapters of our lives. And, you know, that would be a very long, undertaking. But in little negiot, they say in Hebrew, little touches, okay? We want to kind of touch upon different chapters, because I think that the story that we tell ourselves of our lives, that's really the meaning, that's really our life, right? Our life is not just what happened to us, but it's a story that we tell ourselves about our life. And let me tell you a little bit more about myself. So first of all, I'm Naomi's granddaughter. I'm her first granddaughter. My name is Leah Gelband. I was Waldman, now I'm Gelband in my marriage. I'm married. I have 5 children. My oldest is 12. She just had a bat mitzvah this year. And my youngest is just about to turn 1. And I'm very happy to be their mom, as you know, challenging as that can get. I'm a psychologist and a coach in my profession. So when I was younger, you know, it was very important for me to do things the right way. And I got my bachelor's and I got my master's. And for 9 years, I worked in the Jerusalem municipality as a school psychologist, which Ellen told me that she's also a school psychologist. So that's really cool. And then I felt, I always kind of knew it, but it came to the forefront of my I don't know, my thoughts, that I wasn't exactly in the right place. And I had experienced coaching, what's called life coaching, when I was a little bit younger. And then I decided that I also wanted to study it and become a life coach myself. So what's the difference between psychology and coaching? For me, they really go hand in hand. But psychology is, first of all, psychology is something that's studied in university. It's an academic field, okay? Not necessarily a practice, but also a practice. Psychology does tend to look at the past, and coaching is very much focused on the future, on where do you want to go, on your goals, on your dreams. And I find that the blending of both of them is a perfect match for me. So I kind of like lean, you know, on psychology with my work with women, and I use the tools from coaching in order to help women grow. So I'm always intrigued with the question of how do people grow? And when I mean grow, I mean change. I mean, you know, step outside of their comfort zone, do something they haven't done before. It's a very depressing thought to me that the way we are when we're little is like the way we're going to be when we die, you know, because what's life all about if not for changing and evolving and growing and taking upon more things? So that's really where I'm at. And I think that at the root, I help people grow. The people that come to me and work with me, I help them grow. So today I work with women who want more out of life. I specifically today, more than before, I'm helping women with their career. So I work with women who feel that they have a very full life, but they're stuck in their career. Their career is in a gap with other areas of their life. And today, coming into this session today, which I'm very excited about, because the truth is that working with people that are already after their career years, golden age, I don't know, what to call seniors, but I'm very curious as what do women in your stage of life want out of life, right? So I'm very much in that place. I'm 38, turning 39 almost, and for me, it's still very future oriented. Um, Obviously, no one knows what's going to be tomorrow, but that's kind of like the mindset that I have, and also the mindset of people that I work with. So I'm very curious. I'm coming here with a lot of curiosity. Ellen asked me, "So what can you do for us? We're not busy with our careers anymore." And I said, "You know what? I'm coming open-minded." And that's where I'm coming from. And let's go to the next slide. Today, it's an invitation to look at our lives through a certain prism of Erik Erikson, as I said. And I just want to tell you a little bit about him, really, really a little bit. Okay, so I have it here. So Erik Erikson, he lived between 1902 and 1994. He was a German-American developmental psychologist and psychoanalyst. And he was known for his theory on psychological development of human beings. So when I remember learning about him the first time, he was, I think, the first person that said that a development of a human being isn't until they reach maturity, right? 18 or 25 or whatever that age is. Rather, the whole lifespan of a human being, a human is always busy evolving and growing. And there's always a challenge for him to grow in every single stage of life. And I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful way of looking at things. And throughout my years, whether it was in the psychological services that I worked in with children, or today that I'm working more with adults, I always like to kind of see things through his way of thinking. There were times where his theory was, it didn't really stand up to the scrutiny of research. But still, his way of looking is beautiful, and it gives me a lot of insight. It gives me kind of like a framework that I can see things through. So basically, Erik Erikson's mother was Jewish, and his father was not. There was also a story like his mother was actually married to a Jewish person, but had him out of wedlock. And then when he was growing up, he always felt out of place because within the Jewish kids, he was like the tall Dane, okay, with blue eyes, and within the non-Jewish people, he was the Jewish person. So he always felt out of place. And the question of identity was a very, very big question for him. And you'll see in a minute through the stages of life that he put a big emphasis also on identity, which I think is really, really interesting. Okay, let's go on. If there's a question, you could write to me in the chat, or you could unmute yourself, but I will definitely give time for talking soon. So try to hold your questions for a little bit later. So kind of going through very quickly the stages, because I don't want this to be the main, this is not a lecture about his, about the stages, but it is important to give you the framework of how things are. Okay, so this is what happens. According to his theory, there's a certain age range where there is something that he calls a psychosocial crisis or task. And as you'll see in the middle column, there is a kind of like a, how do you say metach, like a tension, okay, between two sides, like between two poles. And the human being is kind of living within that tension. And if he is able to withstand that tension, withstand that challenge, he basically develops a virtue, which is like a present that he takes with himself, and he gains it in innerly, okay, inside of him, and he takes that for the rest of his life. Okay, so when I said that today is rediscovering our gifts, I'm really basing myself on, as you see here on the right-hand side, all these really beautiful words, these beautiful virtues that happen as we go through the challenges of each stage, okay? So starting from the very, very, very first stage, when a baby is born until around 1.5, his basic task, yes, someone's asking a question? Okay, no. So his basic task is he's going between trust and mistrust in the world, right? A baby, as you know, we know that babies are so fragile and so innocent, helpless, really, okay? So they need to be able to learn how to trust their caretakers. And when they learn how to trust their caretakers, they develop hope. Hope that the world is a good place to be in, okay? Afterwards, when a child is already getting a little bit older, 18 months to 3 years, there's the task of autonomy versus shame or doubt. So think of a baby that's learning how to take his first steps. Okay, a baby that's learning how to toilet train. Okay, where toilet training is about me by myself, right? Me doing things on my own. The whole issue of independence. How much do my parents let me be independent? How much do they let me make mistakes? Right? Think of all the 2-year-olds that you know or that you've experienced. And the other side of that, like the dark side, if I'm not given the ability to be autonomous, I can develop shame or I can develop doubt in my own capabilities. Now, when I'm able to develop autonomy, what I gain, the virtue that I gain is will. Okay, think of the whole issue of willpower, the ability to say, yes, this is what I want. Yes, I can do it. Okay, so that starts from that age. Moving on to 3 to 5 years old, this is already, kindergarten ages. There's initiative versus guilt. So here a child is already taking upon himself initiative in the world. He has ideas of things that he wants to do, places that he wants to go. And again, it's not only about the caretaker, but really it's a big question of the parents, right? How much do they allow their child to show initiative? Because obviously we know that when kids are growing up, they also need to be put in place. Ooh, someone's not muted. So see, everyone check if you're not muted, or I'll just check if someone needs to be muted, okay? Anyway, the ability to develop initiative and not feel guilty, okay, over ideas that I do. Imagine kids that say, oh, I want to, whatever, paint the wall with bad markers. And then the parents come to him and they, markers, inappropriately paint the wall. And then the parents can come to them and say, how did you do such a thing? That's horrible. It's a horrible thing that you did. So there's this tension, okay, between the initiative that a child wants to bring forward and wants to really initiate in life versus the guilt that he can need to be felt. When he has the right, and again, doesn't mean that he won't, that the kid won't need to be feel guilty, and it also doesn't mean that we're not going to give the right boundaries to children. But again, if the child is able to walk that fine line between initiative and guilt, he will develop purpose in life. Okay, it doesn't always mean that he knows his purpose, but he knows that he can have a purpose, and he knows that it's instilled in him as a possibility for the rest of his life.
Leah, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
I think you talk too fast, and it's not clear enough.
Not clear enough and too fast. Okay, I'll go a little bit slower.
Slower. Okay, thank you.
Okay, slower. So basically, kindergarten children, okay, if they're able to go between the challenge of initiative versus guilt in their life, they will develop purpose. Again, these are very clear. On the contrary, these are very general, okay? These are general kind of remarks, but this is a general way of thinking about it. Now we're going to go to children who are school age, okay? Their challenge is industry versus inferiority. How much am I able to do? How much am I able to produce, right? It's kind of like, how good am I in school? Am I able to be part of things? Am I able to really be, imagine even not only school, but just to be industrious, to be able to produce, like I said before, to do. Versus inferiority. When I'm not able to do things, then I feel inferior. Now, if I'm able to go through this crisis and this challenge, okay, and I feel the sense of industry, that I'm industrious, that I know how to contribute to my society, I will develop the virtue of competency, okay, feeling competent. And I can tell you from working in the clinic with women of different ages that it's so not obvious, the feeling of competency, right? Am I good enough to do the task that I want to do? Maybe I have purpose, maybe I have will, but am I good enough? Am I competent? Okay, this is a question that is not at all clear. Moving along, and I know that I'm maybe doing disjustice here because it's really a beautiful theory and we're going through it quickly, but it's okay. It's okay for you to take notes and take what you take from it. Okay? Going forward, between the ages of 13 and 21, and some will say even much, much longer than that, many more years of lifespan, there's a question of identity. Okay, we know that teenagers are asking themselves questions of who am I? Who am I? Okay, who am I as a person? versus confusion. Okay, confusion is a sense of like this like diffusion of I don't know who I am, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know who I belong to. Erik Erikson believed then, and I think it's even stronger today, that it's very important for young people to kind of be let loose a little bit so that they can explore and discover their identity for themselves so that they can re-choose their identity, kind of like fall in love with it again, okay, and choose it again so that the virtue that they develop there from there onward is fidelity, right? Fidelity in the sense of loyalty, that they're designed to be loyal. Let's just take our identity as Jewish women, okay? I'm going to ask you later on, how much do we have the ability to really question our identity so that we can choose it again and choose it with love and feel that this is something that we want to retake upon ourselves. I'll just give you one more sentence about that. Erikson said that societies that are extremely formal and not formal, what's the word I'm looking for? Very conservative, okay? Societies that are very conservative, that don't allow the young people to this space of asking themselves questions. A lot of times what will happen is that young people, they have to too early on close in on on the identity of the group without the ability to ask themselves questions. And this can come back later on in life. You've all heard of like a midlife crisis, right? Where suddenly a person asks themselves all kinds of questions about that identity. That can be because they took upon themselves an identity too early on without questioning it. So that's definitely something that happens. Another thing that can happen is that a person is kind of like forever in his identity questioning. And then you can see someone who's a student still at the age of 35 and 40 and hasn't chosen yet and hasn't basically committed to an identity. So there's actually a lot of work done about this stage of life, identity versus confusion. We can go on more, but that's enough for now. The ages of 21 to 39, approximately, we have here the tension between intimacy and isolation. Okay, so these are the years that people get married, that they settle down, that they go from being part of the group, part of the chevra, as they say, to a couple. And there's definitely a challenge here of, can I learn to be intimate with another human being versus kind of like this other place, right? The dark side is being isolated, being alone. The virtue that's developed if we go through this challenge in the correct way is love. Just love. We gain love, which there's so much to say about love, but now we'll leave it at that. Moving forward, the ages of 40 to 65, and I myself really feel like I'm almost 39. I really am between these two stages, is the challenge of generativity versus stagnation. How much am I able to generate from myself to others? How much am I able to really give, right? If before I was learning and developing my inner self, here there's a possibility to give. Also specifically to my children and to my family, but also to society at large. Hold on one second. My son is just, I'm really sorry. My son is just calling me. He's, hold on, alone in school. Hold on one sec. Ari, you need to call daddy right now. I think he's on his way to pick you up. I'm in the middle of a meeting, okay? Call daddy. But I think he's coming to pick you up. So call him, okay? Okay, he got the point. He hung up. Okay. Sorry about that. So generativity versus stagnation. I can tell you that now that I'm working with women who really want to take themselves to the next level, that feeling of being stuck in life it's a really hard feeling to deal with. Anyway, the virtue that's developed after this stage is care for the world, care for my family. It's really, really beautiful. Now, getting into the last stage, 65 and older, and I'm really curious as to how you relate to this stage, is integrity versus despair. Integrity is really the ability to take everything that happened in my life, the good, the bad, everything that I was able to accomplish and things that I was not able to accomplish, and bring it all together and feel good about myself, about the entirety, okay, of my life. Versus despair, okay? Despair is just like this feeling of, I don't know, I like the word in Hebrew, yeush, just like this feeling of maybe deep sadness or inability to to come to terms with everything that I went through in life. I a lot of times feel like when I meet older people, I either see people that are very, very happy in where they are versus people that are kind of upset all the time, bitter, maybe bitter. I think despair can go a lot with the word bitter. And here, the virtue to be gained is wisdom, really wisdom that comes from life experience. Now, one thing that I want to say before we move on to actual questions, and take out your pens and papers. I see that some of you already are doing that, and thank you. It makes me really happy to see it. Is I want to tell you a little bit about what I saw when I was working in the psychological services in the Jerusalem municipality. So I worked with children who had special needs. That means that they had learning problems and sometimes problems at home, right? So that would be like emotional difficulties that they had. Interestingly, sometimes what I saw was something interesting. I saw that a person, let's say with his years, he could have been, let's say, 5 years old. Okay, so if you're five, chronologically, your challenge would be initiative in life versus guilt. But they had some kind of trauma that happened at an earlier stage. Okay, and if they had trauma at an earlier stage, it means that they didn't get through that challenge properly, and they're still in a way dealing with that. So if anyone experienced trauma at an early age, but now they're chronologically at a different age, sometimes you could see someone in the same time dealing with two different stages. A really interesting, I keep on looking because I see that my son is calling me. So if he calls again, I'm going to answer. I'm really, really sorry. He's in first grade and his older brother is sick at home. So I had a child who was in a special education kindergarten. He was almost 5 years old, and he was still wetting his pants and also number two in his pants. Sorry, that's what I call it. He was going number one and number two in his pants. And he was already 5 years old. It was obviously inappropriate. It was obviously a problem. And the first thing that I do as a psychologist is I sit down with the parents and I want to hear the story. What happened? What happened when he was supposed to be toilet trained? What was his story? And what the parents then told me, he was number 12 out of 14 children, a Haredi family. Okay. What they told me is that when this baby was 7 months old, an older brother had cancer, and they basically had to leave the family and travel with this child to the States in order to do an operation for this older child who was sick, who thank God healed. And when this child was 7 months old, he was abruptly taken from the house and he was moved to his aunt and uncle's house. And that baby lived there from 7 months until 14 months, okay, until he was a year and 2 months old. And then the parents came back and brought him back to the house and started to kind of like regroup everyone together and try to bring their family back together. And everyone had a different trauma, really, that really looked like, it kind of looked like the stage of life that they were in. Okay. So this boy hadn't learned basic trust in the world because his life was so shaken up even twice, right? The first time when his parents left and the second time when his parents came back and he had to separate from his aunt. So at the same time that he was dealing with trying to gain trust in the world, he also had to deal with being a fledgling student. And so when I worked with him and worked with a family, we kind of had to help create healing or create some kind of tikkun, like I like to call it, for different stages. Now, why am I telling you all this? I think, first of all, it was one of the more fascinating stories that I met when I was working there. But I think it's also for us, all of us throughout the years, we went through all the stages. You went through all the stages. But possibly there could have been trauma, and I don't mean a big trauma. It could have been a small trauma, something that didn't go as expected or didn't go as smoothly as possible. So it could be that even though you're in the stage of life of integrity versus despair, maybe there are still kind of issues or challenges that are left from previous stages. So that's just something interesting to look at. That's just something that this was my own realization, and I wanted to share it with you. Moving right along. So now we're going to get into the stage of kind of seeing where this meets you. Okay, seeing where each stage meets you. And we're going to go to the first stage. So trust versus mistrust. Here, I want you to remember a time, and you can write this down in your notebook, when you learned to trust. I'm going to give you a few minutes just to think of a time, and don't overthink it. Just go with the first idea that pops up in your mind. When did you learn to trust? If there's a question, you can write it in the chat. Okay, so if you you can get to the chat, or you can open your microphone and ask me. So just write down a scenario, a time in life when you said, now I can really trust someone, trust something. And you could also notice while you're writing down this scene or this memory, did it have any connection to hope? Okay, because according to Erikson, when you learn to trust, you develop hope. So just out of curiosity, kind of check how that rings with you. And what I want to do, I'm kind of debating because of the time. Okay, so this is what I think we're going to do. Instead of having you respond each time, we're going to go through all the stages with each. I have a different question for each stage, and then we'll have room at the end for sharing. Okay, and if we see that it's necessary to make a different time for more sharing, then, and if it's something that you women want, then we can then we'll do that. Okay, so let's just go through the questions and just kind of take this time for yourself. Okay, we'll do sharing at the end. Oops, hold on, I skipped one. How do I go back? Previous. Okay. Next stage, autonomy versus shame. So this is a cool one. Remember a time when you first felt independent. When did you get that first taste of independence in your own life? Also pay attention with the questions, like what are the questions that very easily you can kind of think of an example, and what are the questions where you're like, I'm not sure, maybe you have some kind of, automatic objection to the question. So that's also interesting to pay attention to. And again, we're coming up to everything with total curiosity, without judgment, okay, just with curiosity. While you're answering this, I'm just going to see why my husband's calling me. So hold on one second. Yeah. Hi. He called me and I said that you're coming to him, and he wanted to go somewhere with someone on the bus. So I don't know. I told him that you're coming to get him though. I'm in the middle of the session. Ask the pizza people what he did. Why? Why?
Leah, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, my question is, must you go through each stage in order to get to the next one? I know Erikson has given ages, 3 to 5, or whatever, but must you go through each stage to get to the next one?
Okay, wait, who's asking that question?
Shoshana.
Who?
Shoshana.
Oh, Shoshana. I don't know why I can't. Oh, here you are, Shoshana. Okay, so must you go through each stage? So this is what I think from, I don't know what Erikson says about this, but from my experience with people. Sometimes people skip a stage, okay, for whatever reason. Maybe you weren't so good as part of a social group, but right away you got married and you never had that experience of being part of a peer group, let's say. I think that there will be something perhaps missing in your experience or not. And the only reason to know if it's okay or not is how you are moving forward from here. Meaning, if you feel that something is stopping you from moving forward, then it's worth looking back and saying, wait a minute, is there something that I'm missing here that I didn't gain yet, that I can maybe do some kind of work, inner work to gain it now? I think they are all important stages for a healthy human being. But I can't tell you that for sure. This is not scientific. It's more experiential.
Know that Maslow also has a theory of stages, and you must finish one before you can go to the next one. You may be stuck for years in a stage. You may be 5, you may be 10, you may be 50, but you're stuck there and you can't go on unless you've completed that one. Now, I was wondering if Erikson has that same approach.
So I really have to check what he says. I don't know enough about what he says, but even with Maslow, it's interesting, right? Because you could have some people that are perhaps lacking in something, but I don't know. Like, I would put a question mark there, but I'm going to check that. I'll check that and get back to you because I don't have the answer. Okay, so this is about independence, and let's move on to the next question. Initiative versus guilt. So we said before that when you get through the challenge of initiative versus guilt, what you gain is a sense of purpose in life. And I love the question of purpose. It's really the main thing that I deal with women that I work with. And I want to ask you today, what gives you a sense of purpose in life now? And the second question is, how is it different today than it was 30 years ago, maybe 50 years ago? But focusing on the here and now, what gives you a sense of purpose now? And something that I would like to encourage everyone to do is, while you're answering these questions, just pay attention to your feeling, right? So our thoughts and our feelings are very much connected. And it's interesting to pay attention to our feeling when we're thinking, okay? Do we feel a sense of expansion and beauty, or openness, or do we feel constricted when we look at these questions? Just kind of like to pay attention, again, without judgment, with a lot of curiosity.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel that with age, you become more aware of your feelings, and also you become wiser.
Yes,
yeah.
I think that's amazing. I think I wonder if that's something. I mean, wisdom for sure, but does everyone become more aware of their feelings? Sometimes people block themselves and don't allow themselves. So that's a good question. I definitely would bring that back to the group, and does everyone share that experience of being more connected to their feelings with years, with age? So hold that question, and we'll bring it up at the end. Okay, I'm moving on to the next question. So here we're talking about industry versus inferiority. And here there's a question of competence, like we said before. So my question to you is, when did you feel most competent? Looking back. When did you feel most competent in your life?
Well, what?
When in your life did you feel most competent, most able? Like you knew what you were doing. You were doing a lot.
Well, I must, hello?
Yeah.
I must say that it took me a long time to grow up emotionally, and not emotionally. And I feel that actually I do more things now than when I was much younger. I'm a late bloomer, let's put it this way.
That's great. So that's great, Bubby. And that really leads into my next question for everyone to write down.
I'm a very late bloomer.
Who enabled you, okay, or what enabled you to feel competent? I'm adding that, okay? Who enabled you? Sometimes it's a person, and sometimes it's an experience that enabled you to feel competent.
Life experience.
Okay, good. Bubby, write down and later tell me. And if you say life experience, I'm telling this to everyone, try to be more specific, because for us to really learn about ourselves, we have to really be specific, and not general, right? General is without, anyway, so life experience, think of what that life experience, what was it specifically that really made you feel, you know what, I can do this, I can handle it, I can take this upon myself, I'm able. Right, and my last question is, what did you do to feel competent? Okay, what I'm very curious is also, what kind of proactive action did you take in order to feel competent? Okay, it can be, I don't know, I went to a therapist. It can be I moved to a different city. It could be I detached from my parents. I don't know, right, what it is for you, but what did you do to feel competent? Okay, this is also a really good time to, I guess, compliment yourself, or really give yourself a really good pat on the back, because we don't always have the opportunity to look at ourselves and see what actions we took that enabled us to grow. And now is a great time to do it. I'm moving on to the next question. Okay, I hope that the how do you say, my rhythm is okay for everyone, the speed. Identity versus confusion. So my question here is, wait, let me just move. Okay. How much did you allow yourself to question your identity when you were younger? How much did you allow yourself to question your identity? Did you have the ability to say, you know what, maybe I want to be someone totally different? So if you want to answer this, you can answer just, between 1 and 10. Like 10 is yes, I had all the options in the world to question my identity. 1 is not at all. My parents did not let me move a centimeter out of the house without their permission. So you could ask yourself from 1 to 10. Or any other thoughts that come up, any other memories that come up with that question. And I thought it would be interesting to ask, is there an identity that I would have liked to try out? Just as a fantasy, just as something that would have been cool to experience. And maybe I would ask a question here before we move on. I didn't write this here, but did I ever pay a price for the identity that I took upon myself? Did I pay any kind of personal price or national price for my identity?
Unmute. Can I ask a question?
Sure. Rosalind?
I wanted to know if you could send me that list with the different ages and stages. You know, I'm just
Sure.
very interested because, you know, I'm an educator, work with children and child development, etc. And it's just very interesting to me. I actually didn't, would love to have that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, sure. With pleasure. I'll send that. I could even send this whole PowerPoint to the email list afterwards. With pleasure.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Bekef.
Thanks.
Okay, so after identity, let's move on to the next stage. And as you see, we're just kind of like tasting, right, for every stage, because you know we can't do everything in an hour and a quarter. Look at this great picture that I found: intimacy versus isolation. And here I really want to ask you specifically about your partner. I know that what is women here alone together, that means that everyone in this group was married and is a widow. And I thought it would be great to take a few minutes to, you know, it's a big subject, you know, who is my life partner and how do I feel today when he's not there, but just 3 gifts. Okay, bringing it down, boiling it down to 3 gifts I received from my partner over our lifetime together. It could be big, it could be small. And when you're writing it or after you write it, the second stage is to write a sentence of thanks. So we're not even talking about a letter of thanks, but if you can say, dear, write down, dear, and your husband's name. Thank you for A, B, and C. There's loads of research done about gratitude and how uplifting it is, you know, in people's day-to-day lives and how much it gives us. And I just think it's a great little opportunity to touch upon just saying thank you. So my last question here has to do with the virtue that's gained with learning about intimacy, which is love. And I'm curious to know, has the concept of love changed for me over the years? What is love for me today? And is it different than what it was a few years ago? So it's a bit of a big question. Like now that I'm looking at it, I realize it's a big question, but try to, in your notebook,
that is an enormous question.
It's an enormous question. That I agree. Maybe it's a hard one to touch upon now, but sometimes just for the exercise, this I'm telling Danielle, something that I do in my practice is that sometimes when we take a very, very big question, but we kind of force ourselves to put it into one question or one exercise, and these are really exercises in the form of questions, it does force us to kind of like commit to something, okay? So just try out. Love used to be and now it is and see how that works for you. And I'll just add to that, you know, sometimes we don't have an answer, but maybe we have a question. So if I'm not sure what love is for me today, it's very possible, then what would I like to know about love? Like, do I want to know what love is to me today? Do I want to experience more love and I don't know how? Um, how do I give more love? How do I accept more love? So even if you just come out of this little exercise with a question about love, that's also good. That's Jewish people like questions, right? So it's good to come up with a question. I'm going to the next one. Generativity versus stagnation. So what were your most giving years? You can like look back and even try to say it with ages, you know, from the age of 20 until the age of, I don't know, 50, I was just giving. I was just, those were the years of giving everything I had. Okay, so see what those years were for you. And my next question is, have you ever felt stuck? I meet people today in their life when they feel stuck, and I help them get unstuck. Have you ever felt stuck? And what did you do about it? I'm actually very curious. Did you just wait for time to pass? Did you get help? Did you do something very big? Did you do something very small that was able to help you? Okay. So we're getting to the last stage according to Erikson, and that would really be, as far as your ages, this is the stage of development that you're in right now. And this is, oh, I see, I'm missing a T, sorry. Integrity versus despair. Yeah, sorry, I'm missing a something, a T. So really integrity, I kind of like did a little bit of research over what integrity means, like an inner integrity. And integrity is about enjoying who we are, right? You've all done so much work on building yourselves and building families and building careers and moving. And how about enjoying, right? Enjoying who we are and the ability to just enjoy the present moment. So take a few minutes to write down 2 things that you love about yourself. And now we're getting to a big one, which is 2 things I need to forgive myself for, right? So I know that all of us, we walk around with things that we just we can't get around them. We can't get through them. We can't put them aside. We're carrying them with us. So what are 2 things that, you know what, it's time to just forgive myself for? Could be painful to look at it. And this is really just with you and yourself, right? You don't have to share this with anyone. In a way, another way to ask that question would be, what are 2 things I need to let go of? Because if I'm able to forgive myself for something, then I'm actually letting go of something. And it's very, very hard to let go. We hold on to things, even the things that we don't like. So another way to look at it is 2 things I need to let go of. And this thing could be a thing, but it could also be an emotion, it could also be a thought. It could be like an obsession. You know how we always be obsessed about things. And the last question here is, what do I need today to feel more whole? And I think I'll leave you with that question. And any of these questions, by the way, if you felt like, you know, the time wasn't enough, so you're welcome to go back to them. I'll send also the PowerPoint, so you can always just get into it and look at it later on if you still want to kind of go with these questions. I find that this is what I love so much about coaching. Usually, kind of like traditional therapy, it's all about just talking with the therapist. But in coaching, there's this third persona, so to say, so to speak, which are the tools, which are the exercises, which are the questions. So a lot of this work can really be done on your own. And we don't always have the opportunity to just ask ourselves questions like this. So I'm happy to be able to, I hope that this was good and happy to do it today. We're not going to get into this now. Do not worry. Okay. It's not what I want to do now, but Erikson, you can look here at the title, Erikson's Stage Theory in its final version. So he actually worked together with his wife. And as you see, we already went through the age, the conflict, and the resolution or the virtue. But you can see here that culmination in old age means if I was able to get that virtue from each and every stage, what does it look like when I'm older? How does it feel? What does it look like? Bubby said before about being more in touch with, sorry, I call her Bubby, Naomi, being in touch with more with my emotions, feeling them more. So I think here you can see that you can see it here. Let me see where I want to say it. For instance, just with if you look at adulthood, one before last, you could see that if this virtue comes to play in older life, you have caritas, which is caring for others, and agape, which is empathy and concern. Okay, so that would just be one example of how these things play out later on in life. I'll send it to you so you don't have to look at it now. And my question now to everyone here is, what question touched you the most? And here I really want to hear from everyone. I'm going to step out of my screen here so that I can look at everyone and see everyone. And it's 3:10. Is it okay if we go a few minutes over so that we can hear from everyone a little bit. Is that okay? Hold on, let me try to get to everyone. So what I want to do is stop the sharing. Hold on, stop share. Okay, I see everyone now, and I encourage everyone to go to the top right corner and click on the 9 dots so that you can see everyone. Okay, and how about just so that we can do this in a kind of orderly manner, how about I'll just call on people's names, and if you want, you unmute yourself and you can share. And what is my question about sharing? From everything that we discussed, just choose one, okay? One question or one stage that was especially touching to you, maybe surprising, maybe made you happy, maybe made you sad, you know, everything is a possibility. And just share that one point, okay? So let's start with, am I saying Sarale or Sarali? Here, I'll unmute you. Oh wait, I can't do that. So Yael, do you want to unmute Sarali? Sarale?
Okay.
Okay, so we're with you, Sarali.
I think it was the last one. What do I need to feel more whole? What do I need to feel more whole now? Now.
Okay, and so do you want to share what you...
I haven't had a chance to figure it out. I mean, I want to be with loved ones and to be able to share my feelings, my thoughts, and their thoughts, and it's a little difficult right now in terms of it's all virtual. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's an added challenge right now.
Right. It's definitely an added challenge to be virtual. But what you're saying is that the question of what do I need to feel more whole now is a good question to sit with.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Ellen?
Yes.
Sure, Ellen, I'm with you.
Yeah. I want to thank you. I'm familiar with Erikson's work. I even had the great pleasure and honor of meeting him a few times in person.
Amazing.
And I have read him and know the stages, but I never took the time to look at them the way you have helped us do it today. And I think it's very useful because they're full of ideas and full of potential for us to learn from. And at each stage, I think we can learn again and maybe learn a little differently. But it's been very fruitful to hear you go through them this way. And I think we can all benefit from it. And I thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ellen. Thank you. Do you want to share something about, you know, one point or one question that you can share with the group?
Well, I think what Sarah Lee said is so true, that the combination of being old and for me being recently widowed and having the pandemic, and now what's going on in the US with all the rioting and the terrible tensions, and most of us are from there, just gives us an awful lot of stuff to work on. And I find that it's been very painful and very difficult to try to feel good about myself these days. So it's something I hope I can work on as I go along.
Okay, so it's kind of like what I hear you saying is that it's a combination of what's going on inside in you and in your life and what's going on outside that makes it hard to feel good about yourself.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting point, because I think that maybe it's easy to feel good when everything is great around us, right? But then the challenge is, how do we feel good when things aren't great around us? And it's only us to trust ourselves, and maybe, I'll get spiritual here, maybe a connection with God, in order to hone in on a good, positive feeling, on a feeling that I'm supported, on a feeling that there's someone there to someone or something there that's holding on, or that's not holding on, more like enveloping me or supporting me, when things seem to be so chaotic outside. I think that's a question that I'm definitely dealing with myself. When things happen.
Yes, the whole the whole area of spirituality, which can enter into each of the stages in a different way, is a very important one for now.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you for the opportunity. Carrie Grossman. So Yael, unmute. Yeah, thanks, Yael. Can you unmute Carrie? No. Yael?
She's not unmuting. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. So Carrie, will try to come back to you. Shoshana. So wait, I can't hear you yet, Shoshana.
Okay.
Okay, now I hear you. Great.
You've given me a lot of food for thought. I mean, I haven't thought about these things for a long time. It's a whole course. I would like to continue with more of this. But one of the things that struck me is, have I changed my ideas of definition of love as to what I thought love was when I was first married 60 plus years ago and today. And I realized that I really haven't. I really and truly haven't. What I thought love was then, which is giving me confidence and encouragement and attention. All these things that I needed then, I still need today. And that hasn't changed. As a grandmother and a great-grandmother, I still need, well, the love, the confidence, the encouragement, the attention, all these things. So whereas I hope I've evolved a little bit, love hasn't changed much for me. It's pretty much what I needed then and still need today.
Wow, that's beautiful. First of all, it's it gets me like I don't know the word excited, but just it's very moving, very touching to hear that.
Oh.
And I think it's really interesting to see, where have we evolved and where do we still have the same needs, because we're humans and age doesn't always matter, right? With these basic inner needs that we have.
The basic needs, indeed.
Right. Maybe I would ask you though, specifically with what you said, is you have a need for encouragement and someone, it sounds like someone like supporting you. Is that the same as love, right? Or maybe you still have the need for encouragement.
Part of it. It's not quite the same love as I received from my late husband, but it's a kind of attention and caring and interested, and go ahead and do it, and if you need help, I'll help you with it. That sort of thing.
Interesting.
I haven't changed.
Like an enabling, something that enables you.
Right, is the people in my life who have changed a little bit. I mean, the little children that I did that for are suddenly big children and doing it for me. It's a reverse, but my ideas still have not changed. Wow. My needs have not changed.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for awakening thoughts.
Thank you. Tessie.
Me there?
Hi, yes, I hear you.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say I'm very touched by the way that you're touched by the ideas of love that Shoshana has brought to you here. And I think this sharing as well is very empowering. Now, for myself, I loved going through every single one of the you selected, all the headings that you selected. And each one gave me food for thought, and I wrote about each one. But when you said choose something, I think that the one that maybe didn't touch me in my heart as much as it touched me in my mind, and that was what gives me a sense of purpose now, and how is it different from 30 years ago? Well, what gives me a sense of purpose now is quite different, because I have a freedom. Also, I'm on my own for the past 6 years. As far, not my husband, but sharing my ideas and writing gives me a sense of purpose now. And I've actually got things being published now, which I just couldn't imagine doing. The next thing is going out in the Jerusalem Report and all that sort of thing. And here in this beautiful forum of that Ellen created, people do listen and people do share, and we can put our input in. So how is it different from 30 years ago? Well, 30 years ago, we'd come on Aliyah with we came 40 years ago, but still the family was what gave me my sense of purpose, and my work as a psychotherapist and creating an organization for pre-marriage education and focusing really on helping others most of the time. I just realized it when you said, what gives me a sense of purpose now and then. Then it was really going for others. And all of a sudden, I find now that I can think more about myself. It's not so easy to discover, after all this time, that I'm not quite what I thought I was. I'm more wrinkled than I was, and it's terrible. This Zoom, I see my wrinkles more and more, but even my wrinkles have wrinkles, the way they say it. So, and I feel that I can share this, the fact that I have a different sense of purpose, although I'm still giving to my family, but I think what is in the foreground is different to what is in the background.
Wow. And
I think what's different now is that now the family comes to me. Before, I was always thinking, what do they need? I still think, but now, like, one of my granddaughters phoned up and she shared with me that today, at long last, amongst other things, she's having the brace on her teeth removed. Well, I was just delighted, So it's a different stage, and it's very enriching, very meaningful, even though in this corona situation, I feel that we've tackled who we really are and thinking about integrity and despair much more than I ever did in the past. So I don't know if it makes sense, but really thank you so much for all this. And thank you, Naomi, for having such a granddaughter.
Pessy, thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, that's really, for me, this is so interesting because I don't feel like I have this conversation with people your age, and it's important for me to have it because really age is just a number, but I'm so used to being in touch with people that are in my stage of life, and it's other than with my grandmother, which is always amazing, but just to hear perspectives like that is something to, I guess, in a way, look forward to, because it's so hard to imagine how, like I said in the beginning, how things will look in 50 years when I'm right now living in the present moment. And for you to say that it used to be about giving to others, and now it's about basically kind of growing who I am and getting myself out there without a connection or without an obligation necessarily to other people, is it sounds very special. It sounds like a zchut, really, like a real, how do you say zchut? An opportunity, or it's not the right word. But anyway, thank you.
So we have to enjoy every stage. That's the point.
Nachan, true. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tessie. Joan, hi. We used to be neighbors. I don't know if you remember. Wait, let's put Joan. Joan, see if you can unmute yourself. And if not, then maybe Yael. Okay. Or maybe Yael can unmute you if possible. I don't hear you yet because you're still muted. Oh,
Is
great.
it better?
No.
Yes, better.
Okay. So hello everybody, and I'm sorry I missed the beginning because I just didn't connect to the link. I couldn't find it. Finally, I did Yael Rosenberg, and I came up. Yael. So I want to say that this has been a fascinating hour. I know Erikson, I know all the stages, but as I think Shoshana said, I never really went into it for myself. I looked at it as if it was a textbook, and yes, it's correct, there is integrity versus despair, but it didn't mean anything. Now, I go back with your help and with the help of everybody who came before me, and I seem to be nodding my head all the time and saying, that's right, that is exactly how I feel. Feelings are different now than they were. And of course, the person changes as life carries on. And I looked at love and said, did I really understand what love is? And who was it who said that you have to look for love? Who of you wonderful women, girls, said that one doesn't really identify love because you have different needs of it.
Right. So Shoshana.
Shoshana it was. Said you have love is something that you're really grasping for, looking for. The reciprocity of it doesn't always fit in to one's needs. What the partner means as love may not be the same as you are looking for. And that causes tension. But now, looking back, I really find myself saying, so, what was the best time of my life that I enjoyed being with my husband, looking at love, appreciating the intimacy of understanding each other, of the same humor. It does not answer as Shoshana says, the need for love today. That remains, and the love would mean being with a person that you can share your soul with, which is different than an intimate love. And I think once one gets to terms to that, you can continue and enjoy the present, being grateful for being at the present. It's not everybody's supposed to be at this age, which I call the fourth age, not the third age. The age when you are great-grandparents and can look at the little ones and say, okay, I don't have to run out and help them. I can just sit back and enjoy them. And you can enjoy all the courses that you can take. And really try to enjoy this period of life without the anxiety of being on a slalom, and you know that life is going downwards, it always will. But what do you do with it in the meantime? So thank you all. I've learned a lot from all of you, especially from you. And thank you so very much for sharing it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Joan, for sharing. Very much. I really enjoyed hearing that. I feel that from your words comes a big sense of being brave, two things. One, living in the moment and looking forward to every day, and also coming to terms with what I had and what I didn't have, and just being grateful and thankful for what was.
Correct.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle, I'm going to try to, I'll tell you, it's already 3:30 and I know we've been here for a while, and I also
Okay.
have to go pick up my kids soon, but I want to hear from everyone. So
Can I quickly, I have to go
You have
and
to
meet
go.
someone at
Sure,
4.
Rosalind.
So
Sure.
I'm just gonna go quickly. I'm so sorry.
No, go for it.
I
Go
would
for
have
it.
to leave and I don't want to leave. At first I want to thank you. This was such a great experience for me because as a student of psychology, I appreciate the difference and the approach. It's really, and how helpful it can be. So I thank you very much. The thing that touched me most over time of my life that I thought that I was the most happy when I was the most giving of my family, at my job, working with children with learning issues and various emotional problems. And those years were the best years of my life, when I was most giving. And right now, at my age, that's the one thing I'm struggling with. You know, I did have a wonderful volunteer job working with abused children about I would say about 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago in the United States as a guardian ad litem. And the one thing that I've been searching for here is to find some way. I mean, there's so much need in this world. I mean, you know, when you mention all of the things that are going on right now, but how can I help at my age? What can I do? And that's the one thing that I feel so at a loss about. I've tried various things that didn't quite work for me. And so I'm on a search for finding a way for me to give back. As I always have in my, you know, at the best times of my life. And that's a little hard, you know, at my age, I have to say. I'm very thankful for my family and for my children. I have so much to be thankful for, even though I've had my losses, of course, as others have. But that's the one thing that is such a big challenge for me, and I think about it all the time.
Okay. Okay, Rosalind, I thank you. I totally understand that. And I you know, sometimes even that challenge can be present for all of us at different stages. I think maybe I would just say, set it a very clear intention as to what it is that you want to do, and then let yourself relax a little bit about it. And maybe something will come up, you know, without trying to work so hard about it.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're gonna let's go to like this. Let's do Suzanne, then Ruth, and then Naomi, and then Danielle, and then
I'm going to leave. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. So Suzanne, Ruth, and Bobby, Naomi, Danielle, and we'll end with you, Yael. Okay. So I know that it's a little bit, just like everyone's a little bit. I'm gonna ask for everyone's patience, just so that we can.
Don't put me into the. I'll do the technical stuff.
Oh, you're
focused on the women.
Okay.
Okay.
So I wasn't sure. That's why I put you last. I wasn't sure what your place was.
Okay.
So let's go to Suzanne, and then Ruth. Suzanne. Suzanne's not in front of the screen, so I don't know if she's there. Suzanne? No. Okay, so let's go to Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Hold on, we don't hear you yet. So yeah, I'll just put Ruth on. Hold on 1 second, Ruth, we don't hear.
Ruth, try to unmute yourself. It's not unmuting.
Okay, try to unmute.
Was unmuted.
Yes.
Now?
Perfect. Okay, we're with
okay.
you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I thought this was a most wonderful afternoon. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I didn't know where we were going exactly, although you had sent us this format, but it didn't mean anything to me then, and it certainly does now. I looked at every as we were doing it stage, and then I saw the whole business behind us. I saw my whole life flashing. I mean, I'm not ready to go yet, so I'm not there yet. But I did see each episode of my life in each of these particular things. And it was fascinating to me. And I think what I'd like to do is sit down and write each one. really write a something concerning each one of those, and with my remembrances. And the one that I think that I'd like to emphasize for myself, or that really hit me the most, was who or what enabled me to feel more competent. And it took me a long time in my life, most of my life, and I'm 88 right now, and I retired from being a librarian when I was 86. But it took me a long time to feel competent, and my husband so helped me all along the way. But the incident that really focused on my competency was this, and I hope I can tell it to you very quickly, that I was being interviewed for a job, and I knew that this job was for me. I had gone to this library, I had seen it, I knew what questions to ask, I knew all of these things, and I went, and I knew that I was dressed nicely, and all of these things that we feel are important for an interview. I was about, I guess I was about 40-ish, somewhere between 40 and 50 at that time. And I came into this room, and there were 7 chairs in a row and 1 over here. And I thought, my God, what are they doing to me? What are they doing to me? They're going to shoot me. And so these people who were interviewing came in, filed in, 1 woman and 6 men and me. And we sat down, and they started asking me questions, and I stuttered and stammered, and I couldn't answer. And finally the woman says, no, I said to them, listen, I am very sorry, but I think that I've made a terrible mistake. I know that I'm very competent for this job, but you're ready to shoot me, and I don't want to be shot. Please excuse me. That's the end of this interview. And this woman said, oh, my dear, this was supposed to be in a circle, and we were supposed to sit and chat. And I said, I didn't say anything. To my credit, I didn't say anything at that point. And we sat again and chatted. And they had interviewed 39 people. And I then went home, 39 people before me, and I went home. 4 hours later, they called me and offered me the job, which I then took. Well, that showed me that I had something. My husband had said to me, if you can show them, Ruthie, that you are the one for this job, and if you can put your hand on their table and show that you can be a boss, you can be a boss. And so I was, and I have thought about that so often in my life. I've used it to tell many young people about interviews, about being interviewed. And well, that's my story for that. And I know that he helped me all through our life, and he's been gone for 16 years, and I still miss him. So that's the way it is.
Wow, Ruthie, thank you so much for sharing. Really, I really appreciate it. It sounds like there was that moment when you were in that interview, and you were just ready to kind of give it up and say, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going home. I don't like the way you're treating me. And you kind of, in a way, surrendered into the situation, and then, and then it was yours. So there's like an interesting, I would have questions for you, but not for now, of what happened there, and how did things change? How did they turn around at that stage?
I put my hand on their desk.
Yeah, you did. You said, I want you, but not in any kind of, not in any, not for any price. And they wanted you. Thank you. So who did I say I was going to go to? Suzanne's not here. Ellen, we heard. So we have Bubby, and we have then, I left my family for last. So let's go to Bubby. Bubby, you could unmute yourself. Okay, great.
Well, after listening to you and to all the explanations you gave and all the advice and what people opened up and asked you questions, I hardly have anything to say, but I'll say something.
I'm sure you'll find something.
No, First of all, you made me think, and I have a lot of, thoughts about the whole passage of what you told us and what you asked. And my life has been full of happiness and also full of sadness. And it's amazing. I'm amazed at myself. Where do I get the strength to overcome all my problems? And I think it's something that you have inside of you that you're really not aware. Mm. And when the moment comes and the situation is there in front of you or in you, somehow your strength comes up. Like somebody asked me, I'm 90 years old. And when they asked me, how do you manage to be so young in spirit and everything? I says, well, I had a lot of sorrows. You know what sorrows is? A lot of problems in my life. Yeah. I lost my husband, he was 45, and I was left with 4 kids. And I don't know how I survived that, but I married them all. And then many years later, I got into a second marriage, which I couldn't get out of it. I wanted to get out of it, but I just didn't know how to get out of it till I collapsed. And my children came and saved me. It was like an Entebbe story. I guess all these things gave me strength somehow. And probably my personality is that I want to survive. Mm. I want to be loved for my kids. I miss all the love from many, many years ago. Like Shoshana said, you always have the same needs, no matter how old you are. And I'm thankful for God that I'm here. And I have a beautiful family all over the place. A lot of children and great-grandchildren, and I feel the love from them for me, and this is very important. And I like to give all the time my attention to them, and I'm interested in their lives. And I hope to continue as long as God gives me life to be there for them. And it's nice for them to be there for me. And I love them all. It was fantastic. People opened up. So that's the first time that people opened up and told everybody about their lives and their feelings. And I think this is fantastic.
Thanks, Bubby.
Kola covered. I love you.
I love you too. I want to give a chance to Danielle, and then we're really wrapping up.
Yeah.
I'll just say to you, Bubby, what my thing to you is that I think that not only do you want to survive, I think that you also want to thrive. Because if you're only about surviving, your life wouldn't look as beautiful as it does today. But you have an inner, like motivation to thrive. And I think that we see with your paintings and, you're inviting people and everything else that you do. And we'll talk about it later.
Okay. Thank you.
So Danielle.
Myself? Okay.
Yes. Thank you for joining, Danielle.
I'm so sorry I had to, I was called away because I just didn't realize that somebody was coming while this was happening. So I firstly want to say thank you so much, Naomi, for inviting me. Yael also for hosting. And Leah, your presentation was amazing. Thank you. And like everyone said, I'm so sorry I missed the people who spoke, that I missed their sharing. I found all the stages. I think it's true that if you don't go through them, you're going to have to go back a little bit to make up for the parts that you didn't get. But mostly I think that I'm at the stage that's appropriate to my age. I feel like I've gone through, I've had enough therapy to arrive wholly in the time that I am in. But one of my bigger questions was something that you did bring up, which is the idea of how do you keep growing? And one of my big curiosities, and something I question for myself all the time, is how do I keep growing? That in growing, you're putting yourself in a place where you're not comfortable, because that's, for me, where I grow. And
sure.
I'm not saying that I want to be in pain. I don't mind the discomfort because I see it as temporary. It's not a permanent. As long as I know it's not permanent, I can endure. But one of the things that I have found, I'm in a relationship, is how do you keep growing the self without threatening the intimacy of the partnership?
Great question.
Anyway, that's my everyday question. It's one that I bring up to myself every day. I learn from everybody and everything. So I don't want to take up too much time because I know that everything went a little longer, but wow, what a great way to start the day. And here, another thing I wanted to say about the times that we're living in, Naomi, my father said to me, he kind of knew, my dad's 93, and he said that he expected he would get old. He had an idea for himself about what it would be to get old, and he was preparing himself for certain ideas, but he hadn't kind of figured on the pandemic, and that it really confused his ideas for himself. I think it's interesting to meet you all right now at a time where it's really confusing.
Yeah.
Really confusing.
Danielle, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna sign off. I'll send you through the email. Maybe I'll send it to Ellen, or I'll reply to everyone, send you the material that I have. If you have any other questions, I'm here. And maybe just one little thing, just because of what Danielle just said now. Thank you, Pessy. One little thing about growing, and I think it's true at any stage and any age, is stretch, don't splatter. Okay, so stretch yourself just to be a little bit uncomfortable and do something that you've never done, but don't splatter, right? We don't want to splatter all over the place. So if you could take that to yourself, stretch, don't splatter, to something new in your life today, tomorrow, then that's just a little something from me. And signing off. Thank you. This was a pleasure for me. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye-bye.